Welcome to the Street Manager Change Management Guide for large organisations. So, if you're here, you're probably a relatively large organisation, either an HA or promoter, or you've got an organisation that's quite complex, operating across a number of regions and who work with a number of external organisations. Additionally, you could also be an allocated resource to manage the transition to Street Manager for your organisation. In any case, you need to consider carefully a number of interconnected factors when implementing this project. So you've received a large number of change management documentation from DFT, and you know that change management is going to be really important, but you want to ensure that your planning and delivery is robust as possible. So where do you start? Well, the best place to start is with the playbooks. The first part of the playbooks is around planning, so it's tools to help you understand the impact and how ready you are to embark on the change journey. The second part is around delivery, so change approach to help you address the needs identified from your impact assessment. And the final part is measuring the change, so tools to monitor your progress and the success of your interventions. So where do you start? Well, the best place to start looking is at the change playbook on GitHub. There's a lot of material there, so we recognise that it's difficult potentially to know where to start, but the checklist offers an easy step-by-step guide on how to manage the change. So we're going to go to GitHub now. And the best place to start is with that checklist. The key thing to note here is that whilst the playbook recommended certain activities and techniques, these are not obligatory. You decide what to use, how, and when. You might find particular documents really helpful, whilst others might be slightly less relevant to you and your organisation. You might already have templates, tools, and methodologies that you use, and that's also perfectly fine. Or you might want to use all the ones that are DFT provided as a guidance and a reference. Should you decide to use the DFT tool and templates, you should remember that while some of them come with pre-populated information, they are only the generic Street Manager details that we thought might resonate to most organisations in one way or another. You will, however, need to edit these and add to them as per the unique requirements and circumstances, and you are free to decide how much detail to include. You might want to start from the guidance sections in each document, and of course, have a look at the dashboard visuals. They are meant to give you a quick snapshot of what you can use yourself or communicate to other stakeholders. So, let's have a look at the essential documentation. And let's go back to the overview document. The Street Manager overview document provides a snapshot of the project, why we're doing it, what the benefits it will bring, and how we're introducing it to the industry. We recommend that you familiarise yourself with this, but also distribute it to your stakeholders and in particular anyone who needs a quick download of the project without necessarily seeing all of the details. The next place to start, if we go back to that checklist, is to have a look at the business case. It's a document that will provide you with a lot of background information about Street Manager, as well as anything that you need from a commercial, financial or strategic purpose. The sponsor of your project in your organisation might also need to sign this off, and other managers will be interested in the content. The next place, as you can see from the checklist, is to go to the impact assessment, which you can find on GitHub. Once you've reviewed the business case and the overview document, we would recommend starting with the analysis. The first one should be the impact assessment, as this will enable you to assess all elements of the change and how they all link to each other. It is really important that you consider the interdependencies between people, processes, technology, and ways of working, rather than looking at any one of these in isolation. The key message here is that whilst we've provided you with a tool and some questions to prompt your thinking, you are free to take and use this and all other tools in the best way that suits your needs. That means that you can decide what and how much detail to put in there. You decide whether you want to use the full functionality of the tools, for example, the dashboards, or just use them as registers. You might find it helpful to read through the guidance sections of these documentation. For example, in the impact assessment guidance, you will find a number of questions that may help you with the assessment of the impact on each of the organisational elements, so the street manager users, other stakeholders, any processes that might be changing, the IT environment. These questions are specific to street manager, but they're not exhaustive. As with all the DFT business change content, these are provided as an aid rather than a recipe that you need to follow exactly. So the next one is around the readiness assessment and the stakeholder analysis. So once again, this looks at how prepared your people, processes and IT, and therefore your organisation as a whole, are for the final transition. Once you have assessed the impact and readiness, you might want to perform a quick or detailed, up to you, analysis of the sentiments of your stakeholders towards the change. Here we want to emphasise that it is crucial to consider all internal stakeholders, management, users, IT, etc., as well as external stakeholders, so IT providers, other LHAs and utilities that you speak to, contractors, to get a comprehensive view of your stakeholder environment. Once again, the key is that these tools are there to help you, but you do not need to use all of them or all the functionalities within them, and you can decide how much detail to go into. Again, you might benefit from looking at the guidance sections first. So the next one is change management strategy. So once you're done with the analysis and have informed the views of your potential challenges, risks and opportunities that you might face, you might benefit from reading through the best practice in the change management strategy. This document outlines the importance of having a robust change management approach in place and provides examples of techniques that you may want to adopt when engaging with your stakeholders. The communications and training approach documents provide a further breakdown of techniques, channels and ways to engage, and based on what message you want to deliver to and how many people you want to reach. Again, these are just examples of good practice that you might want to employ. You can use the roadmap templates to develop communications and training plans if you wish to, and you might also want to have a look at the DFT roadmaps provided to align activities. You will of course need to come up with a plan for your delivery. We would recommend having both a detailed plan, you can use the delivery plan template, and a more simplistic plan on a page, so the high-level roadmap. The detailed plan will help you monitor activities on a daily or weekly basis, whilst the plan on a page can be used to communicate intentions and progress to other stakeholders, so the management who don't need to be so in the detail. You might even want to consider incorporating this into your business case. Both of these come with pre-populated activities, which we thought would be relevant to most organisations. However, they might not be relevant to all, and so you will need to adjust these to fit your needs. The Engagement and Training Needs Assessment and Tracker allows you to analyse the engagement and training needs of all of your internal and external stakeholders. Of course, you will want to track who in your organisation needs training and whether they have received it. How are we going to work in the new world otherwise? However, when planning engagement, we sometimes tend to forget the non-obvious stakeholders, e.g. the non-users, such as people in the IT department, managers, people in other teams who might be affected by the change but not so directly, external organisations, vendors, other LHAs and promoters, regulatory bodies, essentially anyone who may be impacted by the project in any way. You can decide on the level of detail you go into, of course. For example, you can go down to individual level, or keep your stakeholders at a team or departmental level. However, what this tool is particularly helpful in is prompting you to include all relevant stakeholders in your considerations, as well as obviously monitoring progress to make sure everyone in your organisation and the external world has been engaged when necessary. Of course, it's really important that you record and keep track of any risks or issues that you may encounter throughout this project. You are free to use the template we've provided for you, or if you'd rather use your organisation's internal template, that's obviously perfectly fine too. What is important is to make sure that you keep on top of these risks, everyone who needs to be aware of them has been engaged, you regularly brainstorm on mitigation options, and you track the progress of the actions. So, maybe you've got a load of time now, and you think you don't think you've done it comprehensively enough, or you've got some spare time and want to go into a bit more detail. What can you do? Well, you can go back to GitHub and have a look at some of the additional information that we've got here. So personas, for example, are particularly helpful when you're coming up with your engagement strategy and plans, and work really well where you've got a larger organisation with lots of different types of people. The benefits tracker, you're looking ahead in the future, sort of what benefits and business values will be realised or enabled by Street Manager, and it assumes that the transition has been successful. We do recommend starting to identify and plan for delivery of these benefits as early as possible, as this might help you prioritise Street Manager implementation efforts. The RACI, it is helpful to plot all activities you've planned and allocate people who will be responsible for delivering them, people who need to be informed or consulted about them, and most importantly, the people who will be ultimately accountable for their success. So how can you be smarter about doing this documentation? We recognise that it's quite a big ask to manage this change, and so working smartly is essential. So you can add as much or as little detail as you like. You don't need to go down to every individual person in your organisation unless you want to, so maybe use your team or departments instead. Use the navigation guidance available on each documentation, as this will help speed it up and make it a bit clearer for you, as well as using the built-in graphs and dashboards for a quick overview. Finally, look out for our next videos, which will be dedicated to specific documents in the pack, such as the impact assessment. So what can you do if you need some help? Well, you can get in touch with us always via the Ask the DFT or the Business Change Slack channels. We're there to answer your questions whenever you might need them, but also feel free to email us at the streetmanager@dft.gov.uk email address.